So we recently reviewed several Nespresso machines on this channel, but I left out one really important thing, and that is the amount of waste created by these pod machines. This is actually the waste that was made in the last week from using an Nespresso machine. And a lot of it was just done making coffees to test for videos for this channel, which is a real shame. And I thought it was important that we really talk about the amount of coffee pod waste that's out there and the impact it's having on the environment, based on some of the own research that we've done here at Craft Coffee Spot. So for starters, how big is the single-serve coffee pod market? Well, we know that Keurig has 38 million active machines in the US alone. We also know that Nespresso generated about 6.4 billion Swiss francs of revenue for Nestle in 2022, which is actually a lot higher than Keurig. And if we look at data outside of the US across the North American and European market, we know that household penetration of single-serve coffee machines is about 50%. In some countries, it's actually higher than 50%. And if you assume there's one pod used per machine per day, that is 62 billion pods that are being used a year. Now, what happens to those pods? Well, we actually did our own original survey where we surveyed 1,500 people and asked if they use a single-serve coffee machine, and then for those that did, what do they do with their pods? And we found only 27% recycle their pods. That's right, only 27%, which means about 3 in 4 people are just throwing away their pods. That means there are about 45 billion pods that are going to landfills every year. And there's at least 5 grams of coffee in one of these pods. And at 5 grams a piece, you are talking about 326,000 tons of waste that's going to landfills. For context, that's about 3,200 full airplanes worth of pods that are being thrown away per year. That is a large amount of waste. And you may be wondering about some of the exact numbers here, and there are some estimates. We're relying on some third parties for some numbers, but we did do our own survey of 1,500 people to find that 27% recycling rate. And actually, if you look at Nespresso's own data, they'll say the recycling rate was 28% based on their latest report. So we're not that far off from the coffee pod companies themselves. So it is a huge issue and a huge amount of waste that's being created every year. So what can you do about it? Well, you can recycle your coffee pods. And fortunately, Nespresso makes it pretty easy. They have these recycling bags that you can use. And all you need to do is just throw your coffee pods in there. And once you fill up your bag, you can drop it off at an Nespresso boutique or one of their many partner retailers across the world. In the US, the bags actually come with a UPS shipping label, and you can just drop it off there for free. And once you do drop it off there, it actually goes to one of these Nespresso recycling facilities where they separate the coffee from the pods, and the coffee gets composted while the pods actually get recycled. And the nice thing about these Nespresso pods is they're made of aluminum, and aluminum is actually an infinitely recyclable material. Actually, a fun fact, 75% of all aluminum that's ever been created is still in use today. Now, keep in mind, you cannot just throw away your pod in the recycling bin at home. Because there is coffee sealed inside these pods, that organic material can actually contaminate your recycling bag. The sorting facilities do not take that out, and you can have your whole bag being thrown in the trash because of that. So you do need to use one of these recycling bags. But it's still a lot easier than some of the other pod machines out there, like Keurig. For a Keurig pod, you need to remove the lid, dump out the coffee, take out the paper filter, and then recycle the pod. And then you have to clean out this plastic pod before you can recycle it. And the Keurig pods are made of plastic, which isn't nearly as infinitely recyclable like aluminum. So the ease of recycling is one of many reasons I recommend Nespresso and not Keurig. Now, to be clear, Nespresso is not perfect. Far from it, actually. For starters, they can make these recycling bags easier to get. Usually you have to get them from an Nespresso boutique, or you have to order them on the Nespresso app. And even when you're on the app, you need to make sure you order a bag from the accessories section and add it to your cart, which isn't always intuitive to do. Also, Nespresso is owned by Nestle, and Nestle sells a huge amount of single-serve plastics that aren't good for the environment. But that is beyond the scope of this video. The point here is not to shame anyone, whether it be people or companies. I just want you to brew better coffee at home, whichever way you like it. But I do want to make one plea, and that's please recycle your coffee pods. It is really easy to do, especially if you have an Nespresso machine, and it can greatly reduce waste. If you agree, hit the like button to spread the word around. That way we can both reduce waste while enjoying better coffee.